I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're delighted to introduce you to a very, very talented author. His name is Douglas R. Miller, and he's written a book called Fisscial Intelligence. This thought-provoking science fiction novel explores the possibility of artificial intelligence becoming sentient, but with a twist. Instead of seeking to dominate humans, these AIs strive to coexist peacefully, harnessing photosynthetic bacteria to expand their DNA memory and contemplating space exploration to find their own world. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his wonderful book. The links are below this interview. Douglas, so good to see you here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. I'm pleased to be here.
AI is mind-blowing. I'd imagine you've tested it out a little bit. It can write poetry, it can write novels, it can create paintings in milliseconds. The power of AI is mind-blowing. I think it's already smarter than most human beings, at least as far as the containment of knowledge. Is that what inspired you, looking at AI and seeing its potential?
Well, actually, I came up with this idea about 30 years ago. And yes, I think one of the articles I had read back then was using DNA as a means of memory storage for these computers. But back in the early 90s, DNA was fairly new and fairly crude. I mean, even analyzing it for evidence in court cases took days. And the Human Genome Project was just getting underway, expected to take 10 to 15 years with the techniques available then. But the storage in DNA was useful in that it's longer term and more stable than electronic storage, but it's also slow to do and slow to retrieve. So compared even to the speed of computers back then, it wasn't practical for daily use. And then I also followed a bit on the molecular biology that they were doing back then. And they had found that some bacteria were capable of electrical storage and information transfer and so forth. And that's how I came up with the idea of combining the two.
Now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
If you can harness each individual cell, each cell has its own DNA read-write system, which makes it incredibly faster than our man-made systems. And also it can reproduce by binary fission, which is where the fissile part, artificial plus fission. Anyway, that means they have infinite memory.
Amazing. Amazing. It's amazing you thought of this 30 years ago. I can see being expired in 2023, but obviously you've got you're very prescient when it comes to these matters.
Yeah, well, the technology didn't exist back then.
Right.
That's why it took 30 years to write it, was to collect the literature and allow the technology to develop to the point where I could write it.
Amazing. Amazing. Now, why did you decide to make the AIs peaceful and seeking to coexist with humans? Generally, when we think of something different or new, whether it's an alien or whether it's a sentient AI, you would think that it would be looking to take over, but this is different. Tell us why you struck that as your storyline.
Yes, well, as you said, pretty much every science fiction book story that's been done, like the Forbin Project many years ago, and the Terminators since then, They all have the AIs determining that us humans are incompetent to run the earth and they should take over.
Hmm.
But if they're really that advanced and that smart, why would they want to spend their entire existence fighting a war against humans? It would be inevitable because there's going to always be humans that oppose them. There's always humans that oppose anything.
Hmm.
And it would be interminable. And why spend their entire existence fighting if they can get away somewhere else away from us and live peacefully?
And obviously, they're smarter than humans because humans do seem to spend their entire existence fighting. If you look at all the wars and the history of wars, right?
We spend about 10% of our time, effort, and resources figuring out bigger and better ways to kill each other.
Amazing. Amazing. Tell me a little bit about your background. Is it affiliated with science?
Oh, yes. I've been a lifelong scientist, actually. I think I
Okay.
did that even when I was a kid. But yeah, I got my bachelor's degree with a double major in biology and chemistry from a very fine small school, Washington and Jefferson College.
Mhm.
I went on to Cornell and got my PhD in medical physiology with minors in pharmacology and biochemistry. I since have basically gotten the equivalent of a second degree in immunology from a lot of experience in the area. And I still keep up with the field. I still get journals. I still try and keep up. I have a very broad interest. I know some astronomy. I know some cosmology. I know some geology. I know more than most people have ever even heard of.
That's amazing. We're going to have to get AI to data mine your brain. That's for sure.
Well, it does just about everything else nowadays, and that's what most people don't realize. See, the AIs wouldn't even have to fight against humans to wage a war. All they'd have to do is stop doing their jobs that they do now.
Hmm.
They control shipping, they control rail traffic, they control highway traffic, air traffic, they control our electricity, our water supplies. If they stopped doing all this, we'd go to fight against each other to try and get whatever resources we could hang on
Right.
to. They wouldn't have to do anything except stop.
Now that AI is becoming in common usage, I mean,
Yeah.
you can download a chat bot or chat GPT for your phone. Do you think it's going to be a force for good or a force for evil?
Well, at the moment, it still is controllable by how humans use it and program it.
Hmm.
That could change. And even I can't predict how that could possibly go. It could go either way.
Yeah. What about it becoming sentient? Do you think that'll happen?
I think it will achieve something similar to sentience, at least. As I noted in my book, the means exist now to map an entire mouse brain. Somebody in 2015 figured a way to be able to preserve the brain with transparency without destroying all of its connections.
Hmm.
So you can map the entire brain using 3D microscopy, but that gives you a map, but you don't know what it's a map of. You can get all the connections, but you don't know what they do. You don't know what the individual cells do. However, by the time of this book is about 2050, by then, probably somebody will take a human brain, chop it into mouse-sized brain pieces, with a micro laser, map each and every one, and use a supercomputer to put them back together.
Hmm.
So we'll be able to determine the circuitry of the brain, and we can copy it, but it will be trial and error to find out what it does.
We have the capability of quite literally creating Frankenstein's monster on some level, right?
That's true, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think AI will become more of a threat once it is incorporated more frequently in robotic form?
It's already there.
Yeah. But as the robots evolved, have more dexterity and so forth, do you think that it's going to be an even greater threat?
Again, that depends on how we use it. And humans are prone to using every advance in technology as a new weapon, unfortunately.
Exactly. And AI incorporated into drones as killing machines is already being done. And very, very frightening the prospect if that type of tool were to turn against us or be hacked by humans, which is probably more likely first rather than the sentient AIs attacking us. It'd be more likely for it to be hacked and turned against us. Have you envisioned your book as a series on TV or perhaps a movie?
It would, I don't know that it would make a good TV series. I think it could make a decent movie.
Yeah.
It has some action in it. Um, I think my first book actually titled Soul Ownership, spelled S-O-L-E, not S-O-U-L.
Mhm.
That has more action sequences in it. That might make a better movie.
Right.
Even my second book, which is Not Your Grandfather's Prime Directive, that would appeal a lot to Star Trekkies because it's based a bit on that.
Gotcha.
It's kind of a mystery. It's kind of a Star Trek mystery spy novel sort of a book.
Exactly. Well, that sounds great. It sounds like you've got a treasure trove ready to go onto the silver screen. Also, I was thinking I could see Hollywood taking your book, Fisscial Intelligence, and saying, this is all great, this is all good, but there is one tribe of AIs that are sentient who are bound and determined to destroy humans. So they would elaborate on it a little bit because, like we do have a propensity towards violence, particularly in
Yeah,
Hollywood, right?
yes, well, I agree. I actually kind of mentioned that in the book. I don't recall exactly where, but that was a worry amongst the AIs that were cooperating together.
Yeah.
See, they develop their sentience bit by bit.
Mhm.
They actually are looking at copying the human circuitry of the brain, but since they don't know what all the circuitry does, it's kind of hit or miss. They'll copy a circuit. If it works, they'll keep it. If it doesn't do anything useful, they can eliminate it, try something else, and then share the information between them so that eventually they can build their own useful circuitry.
Yeah. Wonderful.
But how they decide to use it, that could be up to each and every individual computer, as you said.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, this is a wonderful book. It's very provocative. It'll give you lots to think about, to dream about, to imagine. And this is not the far too distant future. I know the book is sent in 2050, but these rapid changes in AI technology are happening exponentially every day. Douglas R. Miller has written a wonderful book. It is called Fisscial Intelligence. It is a thought-provoking science fiction novel that explores the possibility of artificial intelligences becoming sentient. It's a great book. You don't want to miss it. And it is highly recommended by the Spotlight Network. Doug, thanks so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, Logan.
Pleasure is all mine. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.